The Long Take. My name's Justin. I'm talking to my friend Ken. Today we're going to be talking about Mad Max, Fury Road, and Mad Men, which had its series finale a couple weeks ago. And it's a show that Ken and I have both been following since it came out, for the last few years. We'll be devoting, this will be the Mad episode of The Long Take. Ken, how's it going? What are you up to? How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm just sipping my water. I've just finished a nice plate of reheated baked ziti. Let's make sure.
Italian food is one of the better foods to reheat.
It really is. You got to be careful about overheating it, like noodles, because it can get all weird and soggy. But if you get it just a touch right, just a touch of right. Like macaroni and cheese, I think tastes better reheated than coming out of the pot. That's my opinion.
Have you ever had mac and cheese out of the oven?
I believe I have.
Like home style macaroni and cheese?
Mm-hmm.
I grew up on that shit. My grandma used to make that, I should really have high cholesterol because I've eaten that many times.
You should or you do?
I should. I don't think I do. Last time I had a checkup, I was okay. I was in the clear, but really, really good. She would throw like 4 or 5 different kinds of cheeses in there with the elbow macaroni, like a couple sticks of butter, half and half, and just mash it all together with her hands.
I remember
in the oven.
Going over your house for dinner once, and you guys had like. I just remember the rice, but it wasn't rice that I was used to. But I was pretending to enjoy it.
You were, but you didn't like it?
I don't know if I was 9? I didn't know anything about taste palettes.
Well,
you know what I mean?
At least you were polite about it. You pretended.
Yeah, I pretend to like lots of things that you do, Justin. I'm sure. Anyway, just like movies.
Yeah.
I've been making this whole thing up.
I hate movies. I hate sitting still for an hour and 45 minutes.
Exactly. I think a lot of people do, even though they go to the movies. I see people squirm a little too often.
A little antsy.
You know why? I see people squirm at concerts. I went to see U2 live.
Oh, how was that?
This past Wednesday, and it was great. They were great live. I know people like to make fun of them, and
people they become the butt of many jokes these days.
They are.
Would you call yourself a fan?
I grew up listening to them, so they're like more like a legacy act for me. They're like the band that I grew up listening to, kind of fell out with around Pop, that album that they did, and then like one Beautiful Day, that song came out. I was like, okay, and then like Vertigo came out. When those songs came out, those albums that they made in the 2000s, I was like, I would listen to like them on the radio, but really I was all about like the stuff they made up till like Octon Baby or Zooropa, like the Mysterious Ways. Like I was really into those albums that those songs came out of. But when I saw them live, like I would sing like their more well-known songs with them, like from when they were sing Vertigo and like Beautiful Day, which they did do. But like I kind of listened to their latest album just to try to get myself prepped. But I'm actually glad that I saw them live for this album instead of their previous album, because this album sounded great live. They did I think 7 or 8 songs from Songs of Innocence. And and like even like the Joey Ramone song, the most beautiful music in the world or something like that song.
I have not listened to any.
You don't even listen to the radio, do you? You have an iPod. You don't even need to listen to the radio.
Nah, I listen to at work. I listen to more like radio music because they always have satellite radio on in the operating room. So, but that's depending on whatever musical taste of the surgeon or whoever is in charge of that room. But I never really liked U2. I heard like all the people making fun of them a lot, especially after they had that comeback with Vertigo and everything after that. Like South Park ripped them apart with that one episode because Bono gets so much shit because he's a humanitarian and he does all this good around the world, but he's got this personality, I guess, that roasts people.
He's kind of full of himself. But go on.
But I listened to the radio years ago and I heard Sunday Bloody Sunday and I was like, this is fantastic. This is a great song. So
but tying it into what I'm saying about audiences,
yeah.
A lot of people are on their cell phones in concerts all the time.
Yeah,
it's not okay during during a screening of a movie. You still see some people try and do it, but at concerts, it's like whatever, and like it's just all like the entire show. It's like, why'd you spend $100-something on this ticket, and you're gonna use it to just be on your phone like that? That was.
Well, are they on their phone or are they using like their camera to record it?
I've seen people actually on checking Facebook like for a good 20 minutes.
Seriously?
Yes, I'm dead serious.
How do you do that at a concert?
And I was sitting in like the second level, so I could see everyone below, and I saw a lot of phones just out, not really being used to. And even like taking video, like I can understand you want to get some video, but like I see people taking video like almost the entire time, and it's like. Just watch it, like what Louis C.K. says.
Yeah,
it's like,
just be there.
You're right there.
Did you? I'm glad you brought that up because I watched that episode yesterday, where he's at the play with his daughter.
Yeah, I haven't seen the new season.
Oh, yeah, right. But he talks about just watch it on one of his stand-up specials, right?
Oh my God, right?
Well, yeah. There's an episode that I think it's like toward the end of the season. I wanted to binge watch the whole season yesterday, but we got caught up doing other stuff. But I watched this episode where he's at a play with his daughter, and his daughter is on her phone, and he's getting upset because he's like being moved by this play, and after when he walks out with his daughter, he like confronts her about it. He wants to take her phone away. He's like, "You live in this amazing city. You get to go to plays like this. You all that you're exposed to, and you got your head in your phone the whole time. You're texting." And the daughter kind of comes back at him. She's like, "I wasn't texting. I was actually learning about the play." And then she's dropping all this knowledge about him. She's like, "Did you know this about the play? Did you know that about the play?" And basically saying that just because she's able to multitask and be there, like he thought that she wasn't paying attention, but she was able to recite things back to him that she heard. So she obviously was paying attention. She was just doing two things at once. And it made me think of myself because when I watch a movie with Jen or my sister or something like that, and they've got their phone out, like I get annoyed because it's like, this is a fucking great movie and you're missing it. Like, this was amazing to me and it's not going to be amazing to you unless you pay attention also. Like, you gotta just watch it. But people are different, and
they are. But
like, that's one side of it. But yeah, the other side of it is you're missing out because you're not paying attention.
I try to have this. I haven't perfectly implemented it, but I have a tier system, and like I'll be watching a movie and Christina will be like, "Is this a phones out movie or a phones away away
funny.
movie?"
Yeah.
And like if I just want to watch it, I'll just be like, "You can do whatever." But usually I tell her before the movie starts, "Listen, put the phone away. This is a movie I want you to watch from beginning to end."
And then we're gonna have a discussion about it.
But like because there, look, I know, and maybe with a play it's different. I don't think so, but Louis always likes to have two sides of things. He doesn't like to just have his opinion. He likes to have things thrown back at him, especially on this show. So,
yeah. But
personally, there's only one way to watch a movie, and that's to fucking watch the movie. If you don't want to watch it, then that's one thing. But if you're gonna kind of watch it and then not say anything about it, that's one thing. But if you're gonna be like, that movie sucked, and you're on your phone like for an hour, it's like, why even bother? Why are you bother talking about the movie? You know what I mean? There's people like that. They're like, they'll be on their phone most of the time, or they'll be tweeting the movie as they're watching it, and it's like, that's not how you watch a movie. It's not. There's no two different ways to watch a movie. You watch a movie by sitting down in your seat and watching it. That's the only way to get into a movie, because there are too many aspects to a film. Visually, sound, watching the acting, listening to the dialogue. There's so many different elements to it. You can't, be on your phone.
Yeah, it demands all of your attention.
You can't be on your phone the entire time you read a book. You either read the book and then take a break from the book, but you can't take a break from a movie unless you press pause. You know what I mean? So you especially can't take a break from watching a movie like Mad Max Fury Road, because that is my and that's my segue.
Let's see what you did
into, before we talk about complaining for an hour. Like two grumpy old men,
crotchety old men.
Let's talk about a movie that.
You know what? Back in my day, kids sat down and they watched the damn picture.
They probably didn't. We're probably all were jerks when we were kids. But
Yeah.
Mad Max Fury Road, Justin.
Let's talk about it.
How did you feel about this movie, Mad Max Fury Road?
Going into it, I didn't have anything, no preconceived notions. I haven't seen any of the ones with Mel Gibson, so I didn't know what to expect. But I had really high expectations just because of what I'd heard about it. Mostly, things that you told me that it had great reviews, and I saw online, just that it was just getting celebrated by different critics. And I didn't read anything because I didn't want to spoil anything for myself, or I don't like reading too much criticism before I see a movie for myself. But I had that expectation, like, this is going to be good. And it was a hell of a ride. I don't know if it was as good as I expected it to be, but I don't want to, just cut it short and just say, was it good or was it not? I think it's kind of lame that people are so focused on the feminism aspect of it, or, there were even people in the audience watching the movie with me that, when we got to that portion at the end of the movie when those women come into the picture, and this dude was like, fucking feminist or something like that, and I was like, really? But it was interesting because it was it's super violent, super just macho, but at the same time it had a main character who wasn't really Max, but it was Furiosa, played by Charlize Theron. The movie kind of focuses on her story, even though it begins with Max. Max gets captured and enslaved, or whatever, and then you learn about this woman, Furiosa, who just has this really hard life. You could tell. I don't think she smiles in the whole movie. I guess Max doesn't either, but she has this plan to free these women, and it was cool because I didn't expect it to just be a ride. You know what I mean? I didn't expect it to be a movie where they're at point A, they're going to get to point B, and then they're going to get back to point A. A lot of action movies have different what would you call that?
Stakes.
Well, yeah, different segments where, this is one action scene, and then something happens, and then, okay, here's another action scene. Now they're at this place, and now they're going back. This is just one journey.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool. I really liked the pacing of the movie. But, what did you think?
Well, I gotta tell you, Justin, I personally was a huge fan of Mad Max and The Road Warrior when I saw them as a kid.
So
they were
cool.
the first, they were ooh, I'm watching a grown-up action film.
I didn't have that.
Yeah. And I remember catching them on HBO or what have you. I remember catching Mad Max on HBO, and this is back when Mel Gibson was still kind of the man, He was still kind of the cool action. Well, it was the mid '90s. I watched Mad Max when I was 8 or 9. I had the Nintendo video game Mad Max. So I probably was a little bit younger than that, because I remember I used to play that game, and I knew what it was about. I knew what it was, so I must have seen Mad Max before. But I watched it. I remember actually watching it a little bit older than that too. And it's just a pretty straightforward revenge tale with lots of fast driving, and there's some interesting little references to Mad Max. That I guess I can't tell you because you haven't seen it in Fury Road.
Yeah. Well, I figured that all the cuts of the little girl, that must have been his kid, or something like that. But then I read a little bit about it, and he didn't have a daughter, right? He had a son and a wife.
I think he had a son and a wife, and that's an interesting aspect that I want to talk about. But yeah. So and then I saw Road Warrior.
That's the sequel, the second one.
Mm-hmm. At my aunt's house, when I was 13 or 14, I was surprised to see how different it was from Mad Max. It's kind of a different flavor, and it's much more post-apocalyptic, much more crazy characters, much more jumping around vehicles.
Is that the one where he's got a dog?
A dog? I can't remember a dog, but I just remember just crazy characters jumping all over these weird ass vehicles. And so Mad Max Fury Road is kind of like a big budgeted version of Road Warrior and I guess Beyond Thunderdome. I haven't seen the third film, but it's
It was so big.
If there's any drawbacks to the first two films, then there aren't many. It's that they didn't have much budget to work with. So with Fury Road, they finally had $150 million to play with, and it's all on the screen. That's what I love about a movie like this. George Miller uses the budget. You see it on the screen from like the stark contrast of colors, the desert sand and the very, very blue sun, or the nighttime scenes.
It was beautiful.
Visually, this movie is just it's straight up eye candy,
Yeah, it's loud sonically, and it's loud visually. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the action scenes that you're seeing is loud. It's just very in your face, super loud, and not holding anything back. Mm-hmm. Go on, sorry.
I thought this. So yeah, with Fury Road, I thought the story was really interesting, in that so little is given away. You kind of have to just accept what you see as it goes along. Like you see these women with getting their breast milk pumped out. There's no explanation. That's just what it is. You see their leader, giving them water and then taking away. You don't really know what the story is, but you kind of get the sense of what's going on. And like you mentioned, like the little flashbacks things that Max has, never really explained, but in a way, it just kind of gives you a real sense of just like the madness, obviously Mad Max, but kind of like the madness that's within Max's character. That he's obviously someone who has problems of his own.
Yeah, here's a guy whose past is haunting him.
Mm-hmm, yeah, exactly.
He's got some serious issues,
and like we're forced to kind of draw conclusions on our own while going on this wild ride. It's economic storytelling. It gives you just enough to allow the movie to keep moving forward and be the bare bones action extravaganza that it really wants to be, without forcing to its exposition. And I find that people who have a problem with the film are the same people who will complain about a movie having like too much exposition, like Inception.
But they want everything to be explained to them.
Yeah, so like Inception is probably the anti-Mad Max, like in a good in a good way, where a lot of what makes Inception great is the exposition, is exploring this world, and talking about all these different rules. Mad Max Fury Road, you have to figure out what the rules are. They're not explained to you, and it's really more about like you said, the ride, from going from A to B back to A again. And I remember thinking, like, when they stop, and that's probably the biggest stop in the film is when they meet the mothers, right? I can't remember what the gang's name is, but you meet them. And then Max realizes that they need to go back if they want to, have what they want. If they want to get what they want. And I remember thinking, like, oh boy, like, oh my god, like, how's that even gonna work? Like, they're gonna do the same thing over again, and yet, like, it just builds. Like, from the first sequence to the second sequence to the third, it just builds. It's never ending. It's just a never ending onslaught. Like, even when there's a stop, it's never really over. And then even at the end, you have a feeling it's never really over. Like, this is just a never. I keep saying never ending. This is a never ending stream of saying the word never ending. But you just know that this is never going to. It's just a full speed ahead type ride. And yeah, if you had seen Road Warrior, you kind of know what to expect action-wise with the film, because it has a lot of the same type of stunts. But Fury Road has those stunts on such a wide scale. And I'll close by saying this: we have so many blockbuster films that come out every year, and you're getting the sense that practical effects is starting to make a comeback, because audiences are kind of getting bored with CGI. I don't know if they're actually getting bored with CGI, because Transformers is still making billions of dollars, and the films that are CGI heavy, like last year's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle remake, and then Avengers Age of Ultron, the ones that really rely on CGI heavily, They're still making a lot of money, but there is, kind of a growing, like, kind of like people buying vinyl records again. People kind of are getting into practical effects again. And with Mad Max Fury Road, the people have been touting the practical effects a lot. But it needs to be said that there's a healthy amount of CGI in the film.
Yeah,
but
if
it's
anything,
a marriage.
It's like a really great marriage.
Yeah,
there you go. Yeah, the marriage of the two working together and really effectively.
Great marriage. And I think we kind of missed the boat. I think once we realized how advanced CGI was, we kind of went all the way with it. It's kind of like how once we realized, oh my god, 3D looks great now. Let's make all our movies in 3D. There's no moderation. And I think we're starting to realize now, or at least someone like George Miller realizes perfectly, maybe he always realized, that a healthy marriage of CGI and practical effects is what really could really make a blockbuster film feel big. You could really use both types of styles in a way that enhances all aspects of the action film. And I think what makes, and this is still on my last note, what makes Mad Max Fury Road so great to watch and such a unique blockbuster is that it relies so heavily on stunts, on those jumping on cars and hanging on cars, and
pole vaulting and
there's that. He had the wide shot. There's a couple of wide shots that he does in the film that you still are seeing the crazy action, just like all of it in one. And it kind of made me think back to Age of Ultron, where you see all of them fighting in one circle, and yet it's so CGI filled, so heavy on that it's not really that impressive. But here you have like these people hanging out on poles, and even if it was partly CGI in that shot, something about the way it was edited in frame. Because there's so many close-ups in the film that when you pull back a little bit and you see just how much mayhem is going on at once, like it really makes. My jaw dropped a couple of times while watching this film. Like there was just there was, that big smoke cloud sequence where they're fighting.
Oh yeah!
When that was over,
incredible.
the audience in my theater applauded. And you don't really get that often. Like when that flare went out and it was black, the audience applauded, and I was so. I don't know. I saw it Thursday night, the night before it officially opened, so that everyone was kind of pumped to see it.
Everyone was amped, so
but that really was something else. Like 'cause you don't really get that just from your average screening. You might get that from an advanced screening or something really like that, but. And there were a couple other I think people applaud at the very end of the movie too. But to see people applaud an action sequence like that, it can't even, because you see the cloud, right? And you're they're not going to actually do a scene in the cloud. They're probably going to stop there. But then they go in it, and then the visualization of that. I was surprised to see how, even though it was so cloudy and smoky and all that, you still got a clear sense of what was going on. All that stuff just impressed the hell out of me. That's I loved it. I loved. This is probably one of the best blockbuster films to have come out, in my opinion. One of the best in the last 10 years. That's my statement.
It's been a pretty good year. Then we had a great sci-fi movie come out, and now we've got a great action movie. Hopefully the trend continues. We get some great genre films, but you're reminding me about just that scene where they're driving into that sandstorm cloud thing. I don't even know. I didn't know if they were going to try to avoid that or turn around, if that was going to force them to change their path, but they just went right in, and then you see it's like hell on earth in there. You've got tornadoes, flames, things like that, and they're still just going on like nothing. Nothing's different. They're still on the chase. Yeah, it was so visually just. It's hard to make a desert look good, right? But I mean, well, I guess not, because you got movies like Lawrence of Arabia that look good in the desert. But
the reason why it looks so good is because it looks so unique, and that's because
it's almost like orange instead of yellow.
They shot it in Namibia, Africa. They shot it in Africa. There are not many desert scenes, I don't think, shot in those specific parts of Africa. I know there's usually use North Africa and stuff like that, but that road. I think that's what really made Mad Max Fury have this unique look. And yeah, once again, then those nighttime sequences when it's just all blue, you know, like that was just that was really something else. I mean, and like I think I understand how you feel. It's like it's almost overwhelming, isn't it? You're kind of like there's so much going on. I want to be able to enjoy every aspect that's being thrown at me, but I can't. Like it's just, and I get, and I understand that. And I was also kind of wondering just how much I loved the film. I was like, I wasn't quite sure when I came out of it. I'm like, there's so much going on. I should see it again, and I haven't been able to. I haven't been able to see it again, but I definitely want to see it again before the year ends. I definitely want to like catch it on the red box or whatever. But,
I think I benefit from a repeat viewing, but maybe go back and watch the first two. I heard the third wasn't wasn't as good, or
the third isn't as good, but there's a lot of what I hear. There's a lot of world building in it. Like and it gives you a better sense of like the world of Mad Max. It kind of explores that aspect, but I haven't. That's why I haven't really seen it because I heard it's kind of the weakest one of the trilogy. But now I do kind of just want to see it just to feel complete. You know what I mean? So
yeah. What'd you think of Tom Hardy's performance?
Yeah, what I liked about Tom Hardy's performance is that it seems like he kind of understands that it's not just his movie. Like, he lets Charlize Theron do her thing. You know, like, I feel like Tom Hardy's performance wasn't particularly a standout in the film.
That's kind of what I was expecting, but not at all.
I guess you could say I was pleasantly surprised that Charlize Theron was the star of the film, because the character is so great. I mean, it's such a great character. Even though there's a risk of her being a little bit one note, but there's enough flavor to her that you kind of you're willing to go on this ride with her. And I think that there's a couple of different times, like there's a couple of different times when the movie allows like the over the topness of the whole thing play out to like a more humorous effect. Like the movie never really goes for like camp, and it never goes for like silly, like downright silly. But it's like this entire sequence is so ridiculous. There's a guy in the front of one of the vehicles playing heavy metal. Like why not?
And it's like fitting in with the score. Like
it kind of allows itself to be fully immersed in this over the top world that it's in without falling for like camp or falling for like silly.
And the guitar is also shooting flames.
Exactly. It's just like this is a fully over the top movie, and we're gonna have. And having said that, though, there are great moments, like little moments between Mad Max and Furiosa, that you kind of get a sense of like their changing relationship without them like falling in love or something like that. Like I thought that was an interesting way to kind of not quite do that.
It's great that this like a movie like this exists where it doesn't have to be that, because there's like a million movies where that's exactly what you expect and that's exactly what happens. But these two are not interested in that at all. They don't see each other that way. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any
love in
that world.
Yeah.
Well, not the other characters.
Nicholas Holt's character in that one.
Nicholas Holt and the redhead cutie who's actually Elvis Presley's granddaughter.
Is that right? That's weird. There's that, and there's Zoe Kravitz, right? Lenny Kravitz.
Zoe Kravitz.
That's a weird.
Some rock and roll kids in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was refreshing because usually you've got the helpless female who needs to be rescued by the alpha male, and Max is kind of like that alpha male, that tough guy who doesn't say anything. He just does what needs to be done. And their dynamic is interesting because he's a prisoner from the beginning of the movie, and then he becomes kind of like a hostage taker to them, because just out of desperation, because he needs to get out of the situation that he's in. He's chained to a guy who's pumping his blood out, and
that was fun.
Once he gets an opportunity, but once he gets an opportunity to get out of that situation, he's going to do whatever he needs to do. And I don't think he wants to hurt anybody, but maybe not them, because they don't mean him any harm. He's just trying to get out of whatever situation, and their two stories, like they're forced into each other's stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool to see how the relationship changes to one of just mutual respect, where they look at each other like, all right, I'm going to help you because you helped me, and let's kill the bad guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the best way to describe it. Is just they they don't fall for each other, but they have a mutual respect for each other. And it's kind of an interesting callback, right? Because in the beginning of the film, like you said, Mad Max, his blood is just being like ripped out of him to make that vehicle that Nicholas Holt's driving, right? Yeah, that his character's driving, and it's being ripped out of him. And then towards the end, Furiosa is, dying. There's a chance that she won't live, and he helps her. I don't know. Does he give her
his blood?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I was making sure that's what happened. It's been like 2 weeks. All right, but yeah, and so I thought that was an interesting way to kind of make that full circle. In the beginning, his blood's being ripped out of him, but at the end, he's giving his blood to this person. I thought it was kind of an interesting kind of way to play with that. I feel like there's got to be something thematically linked to that. But
yeah, it's too poetic to, like, this is how it begins with his blood getting taken, and now he's giving it. Whereas, like, when it's being taken, it's just a selfish thing. Somebody's taking his blood. He's not even a person. He's just a bag of meat that has blood, and I'm going to take your blood for my own personal gain. And now at the end, somebody who he didn't give a shit about in the beginning, if she lives or dies, now he really cares, not because he loves her, but because he understands her fight and he wants to save their friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the movie could be, like, not to get all lame about it, but I think the movie could be about connections, forming, like, in a world where, like, in a world without water, like, people could be really selfish really fast. And here's a world where everyone's pretty much, every man for himself, pretty much, every woman for herself. But in this unity, like, I think as much as we thirst for water, like, the most natural resource that there is, another basic human need is for, like, to have a connection with somebody, to have...
True.
It doesn't have to be love, it just has to be a bond,
Community. Yeah.
And you see, like, when they go through the first motorcycle gang, they're only there to give them something, and they only want something. But then when they go down to the last motorcycle gang, the mothers, right? I can't remember the name of that group.
I can't remember either, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
They're much more accepting. There's like a unspoken unity and bond between the women, right? And like
because that's where Furiosa came from.
Mm-hmm. And
that was her home.
Mm-hmm. I think that kind of what gave Max his humanity a little bit, like added something to his humanity because
that's a good point because he doesn't see it anymore. There's none of that in that world. There's no warmth. There's no love. There's no community. There's just people getting what they need to survive. So he's getting a little piece of his old self back or something?
I think it's about, like, what happens when the world is purely ruled by men versus, like, why women are important. I don't know. That's kind of a lame way to think of it. But, like, it kind of shows you just how awful things would be if we just let men just rule everything. Like, it's all masculinity. And I think the movie is about the importance of femininity. It's not necessarily a feminist film in, like, that, like, the women are badass chicks. It's really about, like, embracing the need for femininity, the need for motherhood, the need for, and how important that is to the world. I think that's what really the movie is trying to piece together.
That's an interesting point. I didn't really think about that, but now that you're mentioning that, and I'm remembering the movie. Like you had mentioned in the beginning of the movie, there's that portion where there are a bunch of women they're just being forced to breastfeed like cows giving milk or something in a factory farm, and then you've got these beautiful women who are just there to
sex slaves.
Yeah, they're sex slaves. He just gets them pregnant, and I don't know what those are his kids, but he's just using these women for sex, for them to birth his children. And so it's taking, like, the two aspects of motherhood, like the two primal aspects, giving birth to a child and then giving it your milk, and it's just taking all any semblance of any any love or connection between the mother and the child or anything feminine away from it. So yeah, up until now, I hadn't really considered that like the masculine world versus the feminine world. But that's a good point. I think there's something there.
Because as you see, like at the end, it's literally about these women taking back like their freedom, like getting their freedom back, or getting a version of their freedom back. You know what I mean? It's that female motorcycle gang is literally fighting men. It's literally like almost women against men, and there's only two people on their side that are men. You know, Nicholas Holt's character and Max, and together they're the ones fighting to gain back like their femininity and their freedom, and to get, you know, regain their most natural resource, you know, water. I think it's funny because like the movie gives you these base facts about what's going on in this world, but there's so much more going on when you really start to think about it, when you start talking about it. And probably I feel like this is going to be a movie that will continue to enhance itself the more you watch it, because I think I could tell there's a lot going on visually, you know. It's just a matter of, so next time you watch it, it's going to be slightly different. Every time you watch it, you're going to see something new in this film that you hadn't really picked up on before, because there's just that much to this film visually. It's really a visual action film, and I think a lot of people aren't really ready for that, or they're not ready for it. They're not, like, newer audiences aren't ready for that anymore. They're not privy to it, because we're so used to having action and then explanation and then action and then explanation.
Yeah,
here's a movie that's
like Idiot's Guide. Like a lot of these action movies have been dumbed down, and here you got something where there's more to it than just, you know, this is the action scene, and then we're going to explain what happened and what's going to happen next, and there's the setup for the next action scene. It's like action pretty much throughout, and not a lot of, like you said, there's no exposition really. They just give you just enough so that you basically know what's happening, and then it leaves just all this room for you to watch and observe these characters in this world. And yeah, I think it's really, really good. Really, really well done.
I think if anything, all you need to know, like having seen the movie now, all you really need to know about what's going to happen for the rest of the film is told to you like in the first 15 minutes, like visually. You know, what world they live in, how women are being treated. You see by the look on Furious's face that she doesn't like the situation that she's in, and it's kind of interesting how she was able to kind of break from that pattern. But then you remember that she only has one arm, then that probably maybe that's the reason why she's not one of the women that's being forced into sex slavery, or I don't really know what. Like,
yeah, you don't know what happened. Was she punished? Was her arm cut off?
But for some reason there's a drive in her to break these women free, you know, and you know all this basically within the first 20 minutes, especially after you watch the movie. Like, if you're like, what's the movie about? Just remember the first 20 minutes and everything's told you. You know what Max's deal is before the opening credits, so that's you already know what Max's story is about. As far as the movie's concerned, and then for the rest of the world, they ration out water. They give it out to these people whenever they want. The leader, you know, puts women into slavery in numerous different ways, and Furiosa wants to free them. You know all this in the first 15 minutes, and for a lot of movies. A lot of action films, it takes like an hour until you realize, oh, this movie is supposed to be about that. Or that it takes like a half hour to set up, and then another hour before the villain does the main... You find out his real plan or something like that. You know? And I'm just thankful for a movie like this, that it's able to be bold enough to be like, here are the stakes, and for the rest of the movie, we're going to play it out. We're just going to play it out for the next hour and 15 minutes. It's going to be or an hour and a half. It's going to be a just major thrill ride, You already, and for a time, you already know basically what the stakes are. They don't. There's no need for any further explanation. And if anything, because you don't have to worry about the plot, you get more of the character. You get more character interactions visually. You know, you get to really get a sense of who these people are without the need to talk about what are we going to do next. You know, because the only real plot development after they meet the mothers is Max going, "Oh, we should go there. We should go back there." That's it. You know, and it's kind of freeing. You know, maybe if we had 50 movies like these come out every year, it'd be like, so what? But we don't. This is not something you get every day or every year. You'd have a movie like this.
It's reminding me of when I was watching Age of Ultron, where it's kind of the opposite. There's all this information, and this Ultron was created by this, and he's trying to do this, and then he's trying to clone himself and do this. Like, there's so many different plot developments and things like that. Whereas this is just simple. They want to be free. They're going to do what they can to be free. And now Max is thrown into the mix, and you know what happens now.
Mm-hmm. Well, after Dark Knight and Iron Man came out in 2008, ever since then, with every superhero movie that's come out, it'd be like, yeah, this is pretty good, but was it Dark Knight good or Iron Man good? And I think it's important to distinguish the two, because Dark Knight is a great superhero movie for many different reasons from why Iron Man's a great superhero movie. Like, I feel like they're both kind of like the pinnacle, but they're both different genres. Dark Knight is very serious. Iron Man is more of a playful, entertaining superhero film.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of unfair to make every superhero film to be like the Dark Knight. It's just not fair. So I feel like it's good to have those two films as, like, you know, as the ultimate comparison. You know, is Guardians of the Galaxy is a good film? Yeah, but is it Iron Man good? You know, for me, Mad Max Fury Road is going to be the film. Each subsequent action blockbuster film comes out, we're going to be like, yeah, that was pretty good, but how does it compare to Mad Max Fury Road? That's what Fury Road is going to be for the next however long, until we get a new movie that resets the standard for action films. This movie, by going back and by going backwards and reaching a little bit forward, to kind of like we said, marrying those two different versions of the action film together, it's saying this is what action movies are supposed to look like, supposed to feel like now. We've had so many of them that it should be advanced in some way that it hasn't been. You know, like, we've already had, you know, Predator, all those Arnold Schwarzenegger films. We already had great action movies like that, or Die Hard. We've already had these standard bearers in the 80s and 90s that kind of set the tone for action films for the next 20 years. And or Terminator 2, and we never really lived up to that. At a certain point, we just kind of, like I said, they've been dumbed down a lot. I think Mad Max Fury Road kind of is the next standard bearer. It's the next, like, pinpoint where you could say, okay, how are action movies going to live up to this movie? Because
the bar has been set here now.
Mm-hmm. I think I said that on like my Facebook. I think because
really?
Like a couple weeks ago when I first saw it, because I said it set the bar for action films or for blockbuster films, because it did. It really did. Even if you didn't quite gel with the movie 100%, like, you could tell that there's just things that movie's doing that other movies just aren't doing. Either they're not confident in doing it, or they don't know how. And George Miller, like, it kind of gives, like, the blueprint, you know? Because it's very bare bones.
Yeah, it's a very simple story, and he's able to stretch it out to a full-length feature, and you're never bored, you know?
Yeah, I think we needed that. I think we needed to go back to basics, you know? That's what I think. And
that's a cool way of looking at it. Back to basics, an old-school style movie that has, you know, influences from new technology, but bringing, you know, mixing it in with the old and telling a good story. And maybe you can only get something like that from a guy who made the original 20-something years ago.
Yeah, I guess so. Because I saw Tomorrowland not too long ago, like this past week, and
seemed to like it, right?
I thought it was underrated compared to how people
I've been pretty good. I thought that was the expectation that it was good.
It's been like, I feel like it's like muted praise though. I don't think it's and like I have my reservations with it too, but the movie kind of has. I guess if there's a problem with it, is that the movie's villain kind of has the same motivations as Ultron in Age of Ultron. Like humans don't know how to take care of their planet, so we should get rid of them. And I'm starting to see that's a common. That's starting to feel common right now, right? Like humans are the source of their own destruction. You know, it's,
right? With with climate change and everything, the way that we're screwing up the planet, like people, like Hollywood is just saying, kind of like what a lot of people are thinking or afraid of, which is that you know, we are going to go extinct because of what we did.
Yeah, and I feel like it's starting to become very commonplace to have that kind of idea in the film. It's not really particularly original anymore.
Yeah, The Matrix, like that, I think was the first or one of the first to come out and be like, because that's what Smith calls humanity a virus. So I'm remembering that.
And Tomorrowland also has like the optimism of like Interstellar, where it's like, yes, we are negative, but we can, if we have a better opinion about the world, if we think optimistically, if we look to the future instead of looking to the past or whatever, maybe we could help fix our present and stuff like that. And it has all that stuff. For me, Mad Max Fury Road kind of departs from all that. You know, it doesn't, because it's not saying we are the source of our own destruction. It's saying this is what happened. This is what will happen. You know, but that's not like you say like we're. It doesn't say any of that stuff. There's no need for exposition, and I found it more effective. It's like, geez, the way we treat the world, the way we treat women, the way we treat, you know, water. I mean, Nestle is trying to like, you know, privatize water. Like the owner or the president and CEO of Nestle basically said that water isn't a basic human right. He said that. You know, because Nestle has a huge water plant, you know, like a plant for water filter or whatever, and they sell water by the bottle and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And here's the CEO saying, like, people don't really have a right to drink water. Like, Mad Max, like, how is that not, like, the crazy-ass leader of Mad Max Fury Road, you know? Like,
he's the CEO of Nestle.
And like you get all that without having to explain everything, you know. But Mad Max doesn't feel the need to explain all this to you. It just kind of shows you. And then
the movie doesn't have to warn you about like what could happen. You know, like movies like The Avengers and stuff like that, where they're saying this is what's going to happen if we need to save humanity from itself. Mad Max is like, yeah, humanity already fucked up the planet. It's over. Now this is what happens after.
And like think about and I think that's my problem with like some sci-fi movies to come out in the last couple of years. I mean, I do think we are coming into a resurgence of sci-fi in a lot of ways, but I think a problem is that we don't really get movies that kind of take place in the future that like isn't just an obvious explanation of our faults. Like you think about like Blade Runner came out 35 years. I mean, it's set 35 years into the future, right? Right. But it's not like, look what happened, idiots. Like kind of like Interstellar. Interstellar is kind of like a, you know, global warming really took a toll on us. You know, like it kind of has that because Matthew McConaughey has like 5 speeches in that film. Anne Hathaway has like a speech about love. You know, like there's a lot of didacticness. You know, like a lot of like needing to teach the people, right? Whereas Blade Runner doesn't tell you shit. I mean, at least not in the narration. No narration. It doesn't like explain what's happening to the world, like why it's just that's the future.
This is the world that we're in.
Accept
this is the story that's happening.
If you could find commonalities, if you could find similarities between that future, if there's a story being told there, you'll get it. You'll realize it eventually, but not because the characters are all like, gee, global warming really fucked everything up. Like, you think about like sci-fi movies from the 50s, like robots are taking over, and they're not saying like, see what happens, when technology takes over. They're going to the future, and this is their fears. These are the fears. These are the things that they worry about. But they're not like beating you over the head with it. They're not trying to teach you something. You learn things through what you're seeing, and I think that's what Mad Max do. It's like one of the few sci-fi movies that take place in the future. So I think like Ex Machina kind of takes place in like a version of our present, kind of.
I think so too.
And even Under the Skin, which is also a good, it kind of takes place in our present. But like, as far as movies that take place in the future, I think Mad Max Fury Road is like one of the few films of like the past 10 years or so that we could just kind of accept this is the future. In this
it doesn't even say like it takes place in the year 2050 or whatever. No. It's just, hey, this world doesn't look like the world that I'm used to. Mm-hmm. Something bad must have happened. I mean, it's not like sci-fi writers or filmmakers choose 2150 and then they explore this world for just no reason. Like Stanley Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke didn't decide to make 2001, and you're like, hey, let's just add this, and this is going to happen. That's a cool thing. Like, they wanted to look into the future to see what could happen to us, or see what will happen. Kind of making predictions, but not in a way where they're telling you what they are. They're just like, this is what happened. Here's a natural evolution of what humanity how humanity evolved. They're not telling you what to be afraid of. They're giving it to you, and you can react that way. You can be afraid of it if it scares you. Mm-hmm. That's up to you.
Yeah,
they're not telling you how to feel.
Mm-hmm. I think I don't know. I'm just saying, like, implications is better than explanation. It's more effective. It's more effective to show, like, these mothers, their breast milk's just being sucked out of them. Is way more effective than being like, there's women who was like, they never say that. It's never said. Never said in the movie. Right. But I remember that shot. I can't not think about that. It's such a great, and they're holding like their dead infants in their hands. Like, that's just shown to you. That's not explained to you.
I must have missed that. I didn't see the dead
infants. I'm pretty sure that's what they were holding, but I don't know. You can.
Well, I didn't. I guess it's more rewarding to an audience, or for an audience, to get to that point without having it spoon-fed to them.
Mm-hmm. That's how I feel. So I don't know. I think that's just why Mad Max Fury Road is such an effective film to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. The bar has been set. Mm-hmm. I got to see it again.
I do
really
too.
Want to see it again.
Mm-hmm. And June is kind of a lull-ish month. There's a couple of interesting movies coming out this month, like Inside Out. Jurassic World could be interesting just because it's Jurassic Park. It's that world. But there aren't that many great movies coming out this year. So if you saw Mad Max Fury Road, just see it again. There's movies coming out like later on in the year, but in June it's kind of dry. So it's a good opportunity to revisit Mad Max if you haven't already. Right. So yeah. So anything else? Do you have anything to wrap up this discussion about Fury Road?
No, I don't think so. I think we did it justice.
I think we did too. When we come back, Mad Men. Stay tuned. Wait. Here's a preview of the next part of this episode. Justin, what are you doing? Close the door. What? I'm taking a shit. Hang up the phone. On the next Mad Men. On the long take. Stay tuned. You're going to find out why all that stuff happened. Well, Justin, I'm glad you're here. I know that the long take, you're a co-host, and I want to impress you with my presentation because I have a great idea about to really commercialize the long take. All right, so just can you?
Well, that's good because I need $1 million idea.
All right. All right. Cut to a bed. Right. There's a woman. She's sleeping. She wakes up. She has a need to hear something. She has earmuffs on. She doesn't like being disturbed during her sleep. Earmuffs on. She doesn't even like listening to anything when she's awake. Right. She's kind of in a daze. She takes steps close up of her feet, walking down the steps to her kitchen. She takes out coffee, makes a coffee for a minute. It's a long commercial. We're really waiting for her to make that coffee. Takes a sip. All of a sudden, she's awake. She's awake, but she's still kind of thirsty, but not for a liquid. More like something audio. Something that she wants to listen to because she's been wearing the earmuff for too long. She goes to her laptop. She opens it. And she sees this link, long take. And she's like, that's interesting. I like that. That's a good name for a podcast. I like that. She puts in her headphones, takes out her earmuffs, puts on headphones, and she presses play. And she has the most intense orgasm of her life. And then the long take. It will fuck you up. But of course, we will replace the F word but that's the commercial.
That's beautiful. It reminds me of my childhood.
You know what?
You're hired.
It reminds me of my childhood. I grew up in a whorehouse, so... Wait, what? Oh, no.
Get out.
And
what a show.
That, in a sense, is Mad Men. I think that's the best way to pay tribute to the show. Or the
imitation.
Or the worst way.
Good or bad is the best form of flattery.
I love that world so much. I love the world of the show. I'm gonna miss it a lot.
I'm gonna miss going there. I'm gonna miss going to the 60s with Don Draper.
I kind of wish we went into the 70s with them. I mean, I don't know. I feel like if you're a kid and you want to get a sense of what the 60s were like without all the obvious stuff, like you can read
all the cliche stuff, the Beatles,
assassinations of people. I mean, that's in the show too. Almost all the assassinations were in the show.
The big ones: Martin Luther King, JFK.
RFK. Yeah, I don't know if they go too much into Bobby Kennedy, but they do show him running for president. They show like that whole thing, so I think they incorporate that too. But it's in a way it kind of gives you a sense of like the atmosphere of the '60s and the changing of the times, but in so very subtle ways, because each episode takes place in like a different month, I guess, right? And what I love about that is how like. It kind of jumps into... You kind of have to catch up with it. Things change between episode 2 and episode 3, and you have to catch up with what's going on all of a sudden,
Yeah.
And the hint of change in like the previous episode, it's already changed in the next episode, and you're gonna have to just accept it and move on to the next thing. And at its peak, when it was winning the Emmys, the show really was kind of like the talk of like a very small cult. People who were watching the show, but it was like, did you watch last night's Mad Men? Did you watch Mad Men last night? People who were watching the show, and it wasn't that many people, unfortunately. It never really grew to a big audience like Breaking Bad eventually did. And there was a point when Mad Men was getting higher ratings than Breaking Bad. That's how little people were watching Breaking Bad. But Breaking Bad exploded during its final season, but Mad Men kind of dropped down to the point where Mad Men, the last 2 seasons, its ratings were almost as little as like Breaking Bad's ratings were like when it started, like
when it first started. So I guess Mad Men has like an arc, like rising and then kind of falling again as people cooled on it.
Yeah, I thought like as it stayed on Netflix and all that, I thought more people would catch on to it, but it never really caught on.
It's a show. It's like we were talking about having your phones out and stuff like that. It's a show that you've got to watch.
Mm-hmm. It really is. and like for me, I almost feel like I want to blame, and I just talking about like, you know, its place in the pantheon of like TV and the people talk about the golden age of television, the cable television, of the past like 5-10 years, and Mad Men was a big reason why you even talked about there being a golden age.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And yet I feel like even there's aspects of the media. I remember reading articles on like Huffington Post or on TV. They'd be like, "Is anyone really watching Mad Men anymore?" What's wrong with you? People I never felt like the show really dropped in quality, but people just decided.
No way.
People just decided
that's kind of disrespectful, man. Like that show, it belongs on like the Mount Rushmore of modern great television. It's up there. Breaking Bad is up there. It's there are other shows, but
Breaking Bad, Sopranos, and The Wire, and Mad Men.
So going back that far, okay, then yeah. I don't understand. Even a good friend of mine, we were marathoning one of the seasons together, and he was into it just as much as I was. And then I was just talking to him about this last season, and was like, "So what'd you think about that last episode, man?" And he was like, "Oh, I didn't watch it yet. I haven't really been watching the show anymore." And I was just like, "What?" Because like you said, it doesn't drop off in quality. It's just as good as it ever. Like the show hasn't changed.
I think the problem is that people weren't quite sure what the end game was. Breaking Bad had a very obvious end game. That was Walter White becoming Heisenberg fully. Sopranos even had somewhat of an end game in that you always got the feeling that Tony Soprano was going to get killed at any point, and then people were pissed off that he didn't. And Matthew Weiner is from the Sopranos ilk. He was kind of born and bred. That was like the show he started on. And Mad Men owes so much to the Sopranos, and there's references kind of to the Sopranos. I feel like in season 7 when Don has gotten off on physical tangents, like driving off into going somewhere weird or going to California and staying there for a month. And when I watched The Sopranos last year, Tony Soprano does that sometimes, where he just goes in somewhere else completely different, and he's just there for a while, and you don't really know why he's like. In the last season of The Sopranos, when he goes to Las Vegas after what's his face dies.
I thought you were talking about the coma episodes.
That too. That had a very Mad Men like thing to it too.
Anytime there's drugs in the show, especially the acid trip that Roger goes on, that reminded me of those Sopranos episodes where things are just kind of weird, because either Tony's dreaming or whatever. But yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. How Mad Men owes a lot to the Sopranos, and Matthew Weiner being a part of both shows is no there it is.
And I feel like if Mad Men was able to do more things than Sopranos, because Sopranos always had to kind of go back to the mafia, whereas Mad Men was able to explore different territory, weirder territory, or dramatic territory. Doesn't necessarily have to end in violence, whereas Sopranos always kind of had to revolve around that because there was always this mafia thing to it, and I think that's what Mad Men was able to do, was really explore John Hamm's character Don Draper, with Don Draper and Dick Whitman, that whole backstory, which was just crazy, kind of a crazy backstory. But then I feel like each season it was rounded further. It started out kind of weird, but I feel like with each revelation, you kind of put the pieces together, and it kind of makes more sense. I mean, it's never going to really sit right, this idea that Don Draper, Dick Whitman just became this guy, and then he just was this person, and he just assumed his life. But Matt Weiner went through many painstaking efforts to force you to accept that that's the reality, that that's what happened, and it's really about this person accepting who he is, who he really is, and that kind of like exploration of character is something that I feel like Mad Men owes a lot to Sopranos, but is able to take that ball and go even further with it, into territory that Soprano wasn't really allowed to go into because of its mafia trappings,
Yeah, Sopranos only had, it was Tony Soprano. He was by far the main character. Don Draper's the main character of Mad Men, but there are other really rich characters where you can have episodes about just them, and it's still entertaining. With The Sopranos, though, it's always Tony the mob guy or Tony the family guy, and it's those two lives wrestling with each other. Here you've got Don Draper, who is Dick Whitman, wrestling with this decision that he made when he was a desperate young man trying to come home from a war, who just did what he just saw an opportunity and he took it, but that decision haunted him for the rest of his life. And he wrestled with that to the point where he didn't know, he had no sense of identity, didn't know where he was or where he belonged. And it's fascinating to see somebody, so a character like Don Draper only comes around every once in a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the best way to really talk about Mad Men, because I want to find a way to really talk about the finale too, but I think the best way to kind of get started, I don't even know how much time we've spent on it so far. Okay, 14 minutes. But to get started is to kind of pick apart, not that I remember the first 4 seasons that well, but to pick apart things that you really remembered about them and how it helped make the show that it became, or the show that it always was. Because I feel like Mad Men started out with a bang. It never really had to find itself. It felt like when the very first episode, it really felt like it already knew what it wanted to be. Whereas a lot of shows take some time to kind of teeter around different elements before it's okay, like Breaking Bad, when I finally decided that Jesse Pinkman was the secondary character, the main secondary character, and it kind of was less about Hank's wife and Walt's wife, and it became more about Pinkman and Walt and their dynamic. The show really took off, and then it became about the villains, about Gus Fring and Mike, and then Saul Goodman came in. It kind of found itself during the first season. You can really see where the pieces are coming together. Mad Men, it was all...
There's no growing pains at all with Mad Men.
Always, and I think people weren't really... it was so consistent that I think people mistook consistency with complacency. It was never settled. It was never going through the same motions, ever. If anything, it was just bucking expectations on a regular basis, And then that's how you get a rewarding... I say rewarding just in terms of the show, but a moment where Lane Price in season 5 hangs himself. Nothing in the last 4.5 seasons of the show would ever suggest, except when Dick Whitman's brother hangs himself in season 3, I think.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that happens. I can't tell you when, but
you know what I mean. There's aspects of that. You see dark aspects surrounding the world of Mad Men, but then when you have Lane Price go ahead and just hang himself at the end of season 5, the show earns that. You earn that moment with the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it takes its time to really delve into these characters. People call it a slow burn, but I wouldn't really apply that to this show. It has enough, because it's really funny. It's not just this, one note drama. It has a lot of funny moments. In season 1, there's a lot of funny moments that I didn't even catch. I watched some of the episodes of season 1. I rewatched them, and there's a lot of funny moments in that season. And it wasn't until I started watching season 3 that I was like, "Oh, this is kind of funny." You know what I mean? This is kind of a funny show, because I think I wasn't really.
Well, you remember.
I wasn't really used to that world at the time, like watching a drama like that.
Where you're allowed to laugh.
And like, just moments between Peggy and like the writers. I think it was like around season 3 when they really started to like let the writers have the copywriters have fun with each other,
Yeah.
Or like anything with Harry Crane is pretty funny. You know what I mean? Like pretty much, and if you think about his character, or back when they had was it Kinsey? Right? He was funny. Like when Kinsey and Harry Crane, their interactions with each other.
Oh yeah, God, I forgot all about it.
Yeah, like they had.
You know what? There was a moment, like in the beginning of the show, I just kind of despised Pete Campbell. You hate him because he's just a hateable guy. And then you start to laugh at him.
He's one of the funniest characters in the show.
Yeah. I don't know if it was just like me reacting to the show or the show deciding that Pete is just somebody to be laughed at, like a clown. But maybe that was there in the beginning. I got to go back and watch. But he wound up becoming one of my favorite characters. And I was kind of upset to see them kind of like they put Pete on a shelf. Or he gets back with Trudy, and that's that.
He goes,
which I think is kind of.
He goes to Kansas. He's gonna be. Wait, what do you mean, like on a shelf? Like, you mean at the finale?
They just put him to the background. Like, okay, this is Pete. Stop mattering so much. I don't know if I have to like I said, I have to go back and really watch this thing.
I don't know. I feel like they gave him somewhat. I think they gave him proper justice. I mean,
there was that part in I guess season 6 when he was doing the driving school and stuff like that. Like he had episodes about him, or major parts of episodes. Like he was one of the major characters, and then he kind of went back to being a side character because they had to make more room for Don.
That's true,
because they had to close it out with Don and tell more of Don's story. It makes sense, but I was kind of just like, what's going on with Pete? What's going on with Roger?
I mean, the penultimate episode is really about Pete and him getting back with Trudy and and all that. You know what I mean? I mean, they set aside. I feel like they set aside enough time to really further. I feel like maybe what happened was once Pete became like a co-owner a little, once he had his hand in the fire a little bit, there was less need for him to be like a sneaky, snivelly, ambitious ass.
Yeah, because he was kind of like the anti-Don Draper. Like he wanted to be Don. He wanted to do everything that Don had, and then he kind of stopped trying to do that. He wanted a different avenue.
I mean, what was it? Season 7 or season 6 when he's just sitting on the couch in the copywriter's room, just smoking a blunt, and he's just like, "Fuck it." You know what I mean? Like, I think the show is just trying to say shit just weighs down on you after a while. You just either you give up or you accept like he just kind of accepts this new. He's like, you know what? I can't just cheat around my entire life. I need to settle down and have some normalcy and still have a pretty awesome life. And I think he kind of realized that. He kind of realized something that Don Draper could never fully accept. That I can't just keep sleeping. And that was what's great about the finale. You think that he's finally going to open his eyes and realize, I need to take care of my kids now because my ex-wife is going to be is dying, and and he said he regrets breaking his vows and everything like that. But really, what it comes down to is he's an ad man. He realizes that's really all that he's good at is being a top-notch ad man and creating groundbreaking ads. That Coke ad is a groundbreaker. And I read a lot about just how how much influence it had on advertisement going forward. And it's interesting to see you could be married to your work, you could be known as great in the profession that you are, and still just be in a lot of ways utterly miserable in every other aspect. But and a lot of season 7 part 2 I should say is about accepting what you're good at and enjoying it. Peggy and Stan, they just realize does she want to start a business with Joan, or does she just want to be a really good copywriter and just embrace that because that was interesting, right? Interesting dynamic, because Joan, she decided at the end she doesn't really care about being a wife. She doesn't really.
Yeah, she has that opportunity to say, you know what, I don't have to work anymore. This guy can take care of me, and I can just. But she won't be happy because she's always been that person who is at home in the office. You saw it when she went away to have her kid, and when she got back and like life goes on without you, and she had that moment where she's like, shit, I really got to get back here before this place leaves me in the dust and they don't need me anymore.
And I think Peggy just always needed, like Don, she always needed someone to accept who she was, and Stan was that guy who always kind of like accepted who, like, you always kind of felt like they should get together, and you never actually thought that Winder would finally do that. Like I always felt like he was gonna like buck that trend and be like, no, but he kind of finally gave us what we wanted a little bit. And
it's kind of like a joke. Like you everybody knows that you guys should be hooking up, except for you guys.
Exactly. And I think with Peggy, she wanted to be good at her job, but I don't think she wanted that at the expense of having no personal life. And it was like that was like the real opposite of Joan. Because she has a job where she could be really good at something, whereas Joan, in her position as an account person, they didn't really trust her to like gain new clients or maintain new clients. She was still at a position where there wasn't much trust between her and like the top people at that company.
You talk about after they got absorbed by McCann?
Yeah, because like, what was her ultimate ambition when she was like?
She wanted to be a partner,
right? She wanted to be a partner.
And then she got that, and then
what was the next step, right? I mean, probably in the modern world, she would have been like an account woman. She would have been in charge of accounts. She probably would have taken place of Roger in that part. But because it's the 70s, and they don't really respect women enough to because. In that role, you see like how Ken Cosgrove and Pete Campbell do it. Where they buy drinks and it's men talking to men about all kinds of shit, and eventually they're like, "Yeah, we'll join you. We'll be part of Sterling Cooper," and because you seem like a great guy, but unless back then, unless you're selling your sexuality for a woman, it's a lot harder to be like, "Can you respect me?" as the way into being a part of this company. Like, they showed that in the last season, like her trying to like just be a regular account person, but the men, the potential clients just hounding her and just they're catcalling her instead of taking her seriously. Whereas, and then Peggy was in a field where she doesn't have to really deal with that. It's just a matter of like different fields, different talents. Peggy,
one thing
go ahead.
But just before we leave Joan entirely, like I wanted to bring up this. I really appreciated the way that they told her story in this regard. Like once she finally becomes a partner, what does she have to do? She has to sell her body, essentially, sell everything that makes her a woman, because that's all she is. She's like, well, that's not all she is, but looking at her image, she's a full-figured, beautiful woman, a sex symbol. But she's more than that. And the men of that time don't see her, especially clients, they don't see her as more than that. So she has to sell her body to get what she wants. And she finally gets it. And when you see, it's around the same time that Don gets kicked out of Sterling Cooper. And when he comes back and he's on that, like, what do you call it? You know what I'm talking about? Where, like, if he screws up once, he's out the door. You see her, she's kind of just like a despicable, at least for me, like I really disliked her and she's a character that I always enjoyed, and here she is like being a bitch to Don, who you're rooting for. He's the main guy, and he's trying, he's like, he's done with the drinking, you're rooting for him, you want to see him succeed, and she's just being ruthless, and you kind of don't think about the fact that he almost screwed up everything that she sacrificed. She sacrificed way more than he ever did because she had sex with the clients just to be a partner, and Don almost screwed that up. And then with this season, you see the other side of it. You see where you're rooting for her, because now McCann absorbs Sterling Cooper, and where is her place? Now she doesn't have any allies at the top, because all her allies at the top are just more cogs in the machine. And you see her getting disrespected by her new coworkers, and then it's like, hold on, she gave up everything, and she sacrificed so much to earn this, and now it's just for nothing. And you really sympathize for her, and I kind of was like upset with myself for even being angry at her when she was taking it out on Don. It's an amazing show.
Yeah, I feel like the entire show, with each character at some point has to deal with the idea that they have to like sacrifice themselves or like sell a part of themselves in order to gain something or be a part of something, or to continue even working at the job that they have, or to get better business, or you think about each character, like they I mean, and it's about how they react to that. You know, like, do they want to be a part of the bigger machine or not? Do they want to do something really truly creative and, you know, write a script for Star Trek and go to California like Kinsey did, or do you want to, you know, try and do the best work you can in this environment where you're constantly being judged for your work, you're constantly showing your goods, you think is a great idea, and you have clients who are like, nope, or like, you know, they're totally backwards in their thinking. They can't see your vision, and it's like the Mad Men is like about the studio system in a way. It's like about like, you know, writers pitching their movie idea, and, you know, Sony being like, I don't understand what you're saying, or I don't really get it, and they have to go back to the drawing boards and start over again. And it's really about, you know, how shitty it is to be a writer, basically. You know what I mean? You think about, or to just be someone trying to do something different, you know? And you think about each character. For example, Roger. I feel like Roger Sterling's big. I mean, he had a big moment in season 7 when, you know, he kind of accepted this deal with McCann. But if you look back, like Lucky Strike cigarettes, when they finally became like their own company, I think they restarted the company in season 3, right? Or at the end of season 3, right? Shut the door, have a seat. That episode was like the one where they Cutler, Gleason, and
Shaw.
I'm trying to think of all the different what were the ones, the British ones?
Cutler, Gleason, and Shaw. Oh.
What were the British ones? Remember they got bought by the British ones and they wanted to break away from them, and then they started their own company, and then their big account was Lucky Strike, right? And but then all of a sudden, in order to maintain Lucky Strike's business, like Roger Sterling had to do, like, he felt like he was selling himself just to continue doing ads for the Lucky Strike. And then it got to a point where it became too impossible to handle that Don Draper decided to take out this page ad in the New York Times and being like, we're not going to do cigarettes anymore. Like that, and then like that, a shitstorm was open. But it was like Don made a decision for Roger that maybe Roger didn't want to make, but it was like Don was like, no, we're not going to sell ourselves at that. We're not going to like debase ourselves like that. And Roger's like, are you kidding me? Like, you know, there's like that business and creative side that's constantly clashing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Who was the guy whose ass Roger had to kiss on a daily basis because, like, he made Roger dress up like Santa Claus?
Yeah,
was he one of the Lucky Strike guys?
That was the Lucky Strike guy. That was the yeah. You know?
Okay. Yeah, I remember that, and yeah. Roger was just in hell because there was nothing that he could do to make this guy happy, and that was his big account. That was, you know, they wouldn't have survived without him, or that's what they thought.
And you think about all the other accounts guys, because I feel like Roger was like the leader, the big account guy. You know, like he was like, and then like you had Ken Cosgrove and Pete Campbell who were like the day-to-day type situation. Like Roger came in with like the big clients, and like he came in when there was like he needs to fix something, you know, that either Pete Campbell screwed up or Ken Cosgrove screwed up. Although Ken Cosgrove was pretty good at his job, actually. But even Ken Cosgrove with General Motors, right? He lost his eye for the fucking job. Like, he nearly died for that job because General Motors, the people who
I thought he was going to die. He got shot in the face. I was like, what?
Yeah, that was season 6, right? I believe.
Yeah.
And you just see him get shot in the eye, and just like he falls down, and and like for the rest of the course of that season, like he has to decide whether to continue being the accounts man for General Motors, who's literally killing him, or to like save some part of his dignity. You know what I mean? I mean,
you know what? I there's a character that I just totally forgot about up until now. I didn't realize that the last time I saw him was going to be the last time I saw him, and that's the guy who wanted to marry Joan, even though he's gay.
Bob Benson, yeah.
Bob Benson, yeah. Mm-hmm. That was weird. I wasn't prepared for that. Like I thought that was the end of the first half of season 7, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then he's just
that was the end of his arc. I kind of had a feeling that was going to be at the end of his arc.
I guess so, because there was nowhere else to go, and the show's coming to a close. One thing I thought was cool was I was listening to Matthew Weiner talk to Terry Gross on Fresh Air.
Right.
And this interview, they were talking about how they filmed the show when, the show's coming to a close, and he wouldn't tell people until, like, after shooting, oh, by the way, that was your last that was your last scene, because, he didn't want the emotion to get in the way of the performance. Yeah, like I'm just thinking of Bob Benson doing his last scene, that bit with Joan, which is pretty moving because it's kind of like, again, she's given an offer for a more traditional life. Or do you want to sacrifice what you love, what you want, or what you think you deserve for a sense of normalcy? And she says no. She refuses him, and then she refuses somebody who actually does love her. Or, I guess you call that love, right? He loved her. He loved Joan. Well,
I think it's a... I think...
Maybe he could have grown to love her, or they thought that they could have loved each other.
Maybe he was more like on the bisexual side than just flat out gay, but he seemed like he was into anything. He was like, I'll do that. I'll have sex with you. I'll have sex with you. Like, he was just...
Benson?
Yeah, he just seemed like he was kind of like... He seemed very open. And like it was too open. Like he seemed.
But Joan knew that he wasn't interested in her.
Like and at the end of the day, he probably was gay, but but like he probably respected and liked Joan enough to like, I'll have sex with you if you want. I mean, and it's kind of feel like that's the person that if she wound up marrying somebody and turned to be someone who's like, she's Joan, and it's like. The guy she marries is like, oh, I can have sex with you. I mean, I won't enjoy it. It's like, what? Anybody else would be like, it'd be like if like I wanted to marry Michael Fassbender, and I was like, but listen, I won't really enjoy having sex with you. And like 90% of women are like, what? Like, like I feel like that's the equivalent. Like just an impossibly hot man, and like they're married to someone who has no sexual interest in them. Like, anyone who's attracted to that person is going to be like, are you insane, So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I kind of had a feeling that was going to be Bob Benson's, the end of his character. And also, Season 7, Part 1 was also the end of the nipple guy. What was the character's name?
The nipple guy?
Yeah, he gave his nipple to Peggy.
Oh, shit. Oh, the Jewish dude.
The Jew.
Ginsburg.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was his end. He just went insane. You'd think if he just would have like kept it together, he would have made it to the end. but he had a new sitcom. The actor had a new sitcom.
Oh, so he had to leave.
I think that's why. Yeah. Otherwise,
how do you leave Mad Men?
And there's another case of like someone being cast off to the side, because when he was introduced, you thought that he was going to have a bigger role in the show because you saw his father, you got like sense of his personal life, and I thought that him and Peggy were going to like hook up or something like that in the beginning.
Yeah, the show always kept you guessing with characters. Like you don't know who's going to be important and who's not, and who's going to drift away after they after they kind of fade into the story.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Betty.
Sure. That episode, penultimate episode, where you find out that's kind of a risky thing to decide that, like, of all the people who are going to die, or like she doesn't even die at the end, she's dying. You just kind of accept that, like, and like, but I kind of understood it, like, I thought they kind of added an interesting element to like Don Draper situation, even though it should really be about Betty, but like the show was ultimately about Don. So it's like,
yeah.
Now that you know that like your children's mother is going to die soon, like, do you commit to being a father even then? And it's like, even then he can't quite. He says he will because that's the right thing to say, but Betty's like, listen, their normalcy is you not being around for the most part.
Yeah.
And he kind of has to accept it. Like, that was tough.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, man. That you want. It's even harder because there's that scene where he's leaving after being with his kids because Betty comes home or whatever, and Betty and I can't remember her new husband's name, but Don's walking. Yeah, Francis. But Don's walking away and he sees them sitting at the table, and it's just like, that's my family. This guy has my family now, And he really just, I don't think he knew that he was going to miss that life that much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that at a certain point he just kind of accepted the fact that, like, he likes the idea of it, but he can't really...
Well, he doesn't really have much of a choice, does he?
No.
They tell him to, no, stay away.
But he did that to
his daughter
himself.
Tells him to stay away.
He did that to himself. Really, I mean, by being a shitty husband, and then like, he traumatized his daughter. Like she tries. I feel like she kind of forms some sort of respect for him, but like at the end of the day, she saw him have sex
for their relationship.
At the end of the day,
because like. When he takes Sally to see his old house and he starts telling her the truth, you hope that their relationship is going to go somewhere, and it really kind of doesn't, because maybe it's too late. She's getting older and older. She's not grown or anything, but she's a teenager. She's got opinions. She's a powerful woman or young woman. She's always been opinionated. She's always spoke her mind. And, like, all their exchanges in the second half of Season 7, like, when he's at the bus with her, and he's trying to... It's like, anytime he tries to give her a message or impart some wisdom on her or anything like that, she's kind of just like, yeah, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I got it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need you.
Yeah, I mean, like, you have, like, Bobby, their other son, and then Gene. And, like, Gene's, like, a non-factor, period. Like, I don't even think he ever talks to Gene. And then Bobby... The only real time they bonded was Season 6 when they go to see Planet of the Apes like 2 times in a row or something like that.
Yeah, and he's kind of like floored that Gene is like this insightful little kid,
and yet like he still can't find
not Bobby.
He feels he can't really find a way to be a part of his life. He doesn't really know how to be a part of his life. He just and with Betty, it just her arc is interesting, right? Because she's kind of. In the beginning, she was kind of shrill, She was kind of like...
Oh, God, yeah, I couldn't stand Betty in the beginning of the show.
I mean, in the first season or two, she tries to be like your typical good housewife, and you get the sense that that's what she's trying to be, but from the beginning, she wants to see a therapist. She's interested in psychiatry, which Don... wants her not to be a part of it all. Her mother had just died. In the beginning of the show, her mother had just died. And then her father dies in, like, Season 3 or 4. And so that's kind of weird, right? Or that's how Season 3. And it's kind of weird, like, death kind of haunted Betty throughout, but you didn't really get an explicit sense of it. It just was kind of always there. Like, her mother died before you even... see her, right? Before you even see her mother. So there's that she has to live with. And then her father dies. And she's basically an orphan at that point. She doesn't really have anybody to turn to that's older, like an older role model to turn to. She just kind of has to kind of make it on her own at that point. Even when she is married to Francis, like, I never really got the sense that, like, they were really in love with each other. Did you?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't even remember, because that was Season 4 or 3 where Don and Betty split up.
It was 3, and then I think at the end of 3, that's when she gets with Francis, right? I think so.
Right. You almost get the sense, or at least the way that I remember it, is that everything with Francis is kind of like really meant for Don, even if it's just like, see, I don't need you. I've got somebody new. And Betty is like somebody who never really got a chance to grow up, you know? She was like a young girl. She was a young model. She moved to the city, and she met Don, got married, had kids, and never really got a chance to enjoy. And maybe back then, women didn't, as often as they do today, get a chance to enjoy just being adults and having a life. Mm-hmm. And you get the sense, though, that she definitely wants that for herself. But she was just forced into this mature role, and she kind of acts as if she resents it as the show goes on. Like some of the scenes with Sally, where sometimes she's just flat out mean to her kids, and it's because she's angry at this situation. Don was supposed to be there to take care of her, mm-hmm. and to provide for them, and then he screwed them over, and as a result, this is what happened. So Betty's kind of a tragic character in that sense, because she got a raw deal. But yeah, when I maybe I changed because in the beginning, when I was watching the show in the beginning, I didn't like Betty at all, mm-hmm. and I was just like, I don't know, anytime she was on the screen, I was just like, oh god, I just hate you. I hate you so much. But like really, the one you should be hating is the one who is your favorite character. Everybody likes Don and roots for Don, but Don is a shit. Mm-hmm. A lot of the time Don is just a terrible, terrible person. But he's so damn charismatic, and he's a talker, and he's like the guy that you want to be. So you see some of yourself in him, I guess. But yeah, man, I really can't wait to really just go back and have a steady marathon where I'm watching maybe 2 or 3 episodes a week, because I don't want to like do like every day, boom, 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 an episode a day or something like that. That's too much. No time to really think about it. Because this is a show that like it really benefits from, watching it on Sunday and then thinking about it for a week before next Sunday. Whereas like some shows you can just binge watch. You're gonna miss some things if you just binge watch the show. And I did that because I binge watched like the majority of the show until I got caught up. I was binge watching on Netflix, and I forgot a lot of it just because of the pace I was watching it. It's a slow, steady show.
Yeah, I liked how it kind of all ended up with really Don Draper getting the ultimate commercial idea, the ultimate ad idea, and
for the ultimate company.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's just so much to admire and love about the show, and I definitely loved it. I watched it for over 6 years. Binge watched the first 2 seasons, but for 6 years I was in, and it was.
This is our show, Mad Men.
This was our show. We were supposed.
Sopranos was like our parents' show, our older brother's show, whatever. Like it wasn't our generation that was like in on the ground floor with Sopranos because we were kids. Mm-hmm. We were too young to be watching that shit. The Mad Men. That's us now. Like this is the show of our time, which is funny because it's like 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, I was 20 when I started watching it, and I'll be turning 28 this year when the show is over. So that's my 20s. Mad Men defined my 20s. That's just when I think about the 20s. I'll think about lots of things. I'll think about getting married. I'll think about having kids. Then I'll think about Mad Men. It's going to be in there. It's going to be the suitcase episode when it's just Peggy and Don just finally talk. Like they're at the heat of the drama between Peggy and Don.
Yeah.
Like they always find a way to like have them just sit down and have like a regular conversation with each other, and it's the most rewarding thing on television. Just watching the two of them talk to each other, like just that. The fact that those moments like were so rewarding just shows you how great of a show it was. When you like characters, you really want them to just talk to each other, and they do, and they have this really revealing conversation. Like that's what I live for, and I live for that phone call when Betty and Dawn finally talk that after she finds out she has cancer. Like, you finally get to hear that conversation. You know, like the show builds itself on like the characters and their interaction with each other, and then it pulls through every time. It always delivers the goods. At least if you're really into the characters in the show. I don't really know what casual fans are into. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't really know.
No, you have to invest yourself fully to really reap the rewards. But this show is one that, like, if you give it what it deserves, it pays you back and then some, like, exponentially. You get so much.
Everything to you. It will get, like, you know, it'll just really just give itself to you, you know? Kind of interesting, like, you have a show creator like Matthew Weiner, right?
Yeah.
What does he even do next? Like, you did the show for 8 years, 10 years. He had the idea for the pilot for many years before that. True. And then it's over, and it's like, you know, same thing with like the dude with Breaking Bad. What's his face?
Vince Gilligan.
Vince Gilligan. Like, you kind of, he said he's only gonna like be a part of Better Call Saul for the first season, but it's like, Better Call Saul is really an amazing show.
Yeah.
And yet, like, what idea does Vince Gilligan have that could possibly be better than Breaking Bad, or just be another part of, like, just be something else entirely different?
I guess, like, the natural progression would be, like, for these TV guys, these superstars of television, to move on to the next thing, which is movies, but that's not really the case anymore.
Yeah, not and it's never really the case with TV show creators. You know, you think about David Chase of The Sopranos, he's never really done anything after that. You know, you think about
he made a movie though, didn't he?
Oh yeah, he did. Yeah, I forgot about that. But David Simon with The Wire, he did Treem, but that never really got like the.
Oh, that's the one, that New Orleans show.
Yeah, that never really got like the. Everyone has to see that show type vibe to it that The Wire.
Was that
had.
like him trying to do what he did in Baltimore, but in New Orleans? Like, was it modern day, or is that going back? I don't know anything. Yeah,
I never watched it. But you know what I mean? Like, it almost feels like it's kind of sad when you're like a creator like that. Like, you know,
what do you
like,
do now? Yeah,
you know, Matthew Weiner is kind of like an auteur in the way we would think about like Wes Anderson or Martin Scorsese. Like, he was like the author of that show. That was like his voice, his style. Breaking Bad was very much in like Vince Gilligan's style, and yet, like, where do you go from there? Like, what could, like, how do you not try to do Mad Men but in the 70s? There's so much you can do. There's drama, there's comedy, there's suspense, there's thrilling aspects, there's people who kill themselves. 70s, like, there's so much drama in the 70s, but I feel like, I guess he probably, first of all, he realizes that you can't have those actors forever, but secondly, like, the 70s has kind of been done, like, a lot. You know, I think that you could find a lot of moments in the 70s, new wrinkles, but
it would be a different show. It would lose, like, it has that. It's funny that we have nostalgia for it. Like, it's really just pop culture for us, you know. But it's finally a show that really dove into that and presented it in a way where it's kind of like, all right, maybe this is really how it was on some level. So I don't think it would have been the same show if it went into the 70s, just because it would the world changed, right? It wasn't the same world, and that's what this was about, like the world changing without them. So at the end, like, the commercial that Don creates, this Coca-Cola commercial, it's about, like, it's showing new people, like a new generation. You know, it's totally different from the world that we knew when we started the show. So, yeah, but, like, sure, you're saying that there's so much more that we could have seen. You can say that about anything, though.
If you're a writer, if you create Mad Men, and like you get to just deal with all the milieu of the '60s, like just take out different aspects. You want to
do that, yeah.
Like, it's just like, how do you just write a romantic comedy after that? You know what I mean? How do you just do something very basic after something that's so deep and has so much depth to it?
I don't know what he has planned, or you know, anything that you do is going to be compared to one of the greatest shows, arguably the greatest show of the last 2 decades. You know, so what do you do after that?
I don't know.
He was in the interview. He was talking like the way that they closed it out. She's like, "Well, I hope to have you on the show again. And he's like, yeah, I hope to, be here talking about the next thing that I'm working on. But I was just like, man, I might never hear your voice again.
There is no next thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there might be, but it really just seems like.
Well, he went from Sopranos to Mad Men, so maybe he's got something else.
Yeah, but you can't go from creating Mad Men to being a writer on some of their shows. He was just a writer on The Sopranos. Right. You know what I mean?
So he'd have to create something, and this is his, like you said, it's his voice. How many opportunities do we have to in one lifetime? Does a person have to create something amazing, and then to do that twice?
He should get back with David Chase. They should both create something. That's what I think should happen.
That would be dope. That would be so cool.
Because they both have it's clear that Matthew Weiner has he was kind of old when he joined Sopranos. He's 50 now. He's born in the 60s. But it's clear that being a writer on The Sopranos affected him, because so much of how Mad Men was developed had so much of that Sopranos bucking expectations type style. So I really don't know. It would be great to see them what's David Chase doing? Yeah,
right.
Bring the two great creators together and create the next epic.
I know people will be hyped up
for Hulu. I don't know where they would bring it, but
that would be exciting though. That would be really exciting. These two television behemoths collaborating on something. I don't know, but I don't know. Let's just be grateful that we have those two shows, and we can go back and watch them, and it'll be like watching a great movie again. Only it'll take a lot longer.
Yeah, it will. It really will. 91 hours of Mad Men. I mean, you could watch that in a week and still have a couple days left. So
without sleeping, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we said about as much as we could say about Mad Men before my son woke up, but that's just the kind of personal, different edge you get with the long take. You get toys, toy music playing in the background. You get my son blowing raspberries. You get...
Yeah, you never know what you're going to get.
Justin...
going to take a piss break.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to cut... I'll mention the piss break, of course. I'm mentioning it right now. But, we're just... That's just kind of the stuff that you don't get on other podcasts. We bring you it's raw. We're more raw. We're not wearing makeup. You're just looking.
You're not, because you look great.
Yeah. I gotta do a lot to keep this the way it is. I mean, I try and put on as much makeup as possible to do a good podcast. Right. Well, Justin, I think we said all we could about the Mad Men. I think I already said that. This has been a great episode of The Long Take. Stay tuned for the next episode, which I think will be about Jurassic World.
Yeah. That comes out in a couple weeks, so that'll probably be the next thing we review. And usually we talk about two things, so what's going to be the other thing we talk about?
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
All right. Well, Ken, it was nice to talk to you. I'll talk to you again soon. It's
always great to talk to you, Justin. And, so hopefully this should be on iTunes. Check out season 1 of The Long Take on YouTube. Google search The Long Take Movie Podcast, or YouTube search it. This has been an episode of The Long Take. Catch you later, kids.
Thanks, Will.
Drink milk. Don't do drugs. And we're out.